So I'm Chris, yes, and I came down here from North America. I'm upstairs. I came down from Detroit, Michigan, and I'm so proud to be here today, and it's great to see everyone here. A little bit about my history and myself. So I started out of college a long time ago working for Nissan. Came to Nissan, moved to Michigan to work for Nissan. And I came because I was kind of attracted to this concept of working for a global company, for a Japanese company, to understand kind of the Japanese DNA. And this kind of drew me to Nissan, and it turned out it met my dream. So I've lived in Japan a couple times with my family. I've kind of embraced the culture. I've kind of recognized this kind of global company that Nissan is. It's been a fantastic experience. And part of that is Nissan. It's got Japanese heritage, but it's truly the global company. And really proud of that Nissan was kind of first to reach out to the world and not just keep everything protected within Japan, but actually to kind of embrace all the cultures of the world and try to design cars for customers in each of the markets. So this has kind of inspired me as I've grown up in the Nissan world. So a little bit about me. So as Alejandro said, I'm the head of R&D. So started as a young engineer, worked my way up through research and development, engineering side of the world. Now what does that mean? So it means we're designing and creating the engineering of the car. And a long time ago, I was actually the chief engineer of the Leaf at one point. That means when you're the chief engineer, you get to make all the decisions about the car, but of course together with all the other teams. So we have some design people in the audience here as well that are actually putting together the shape and the creation and the feeling of the car. And we marry that together with the engineering and the manufacturing to make the cars that you see on the road. So with that, I am, this picture shows our kind of America's footprint. And as I said, we have R&D centers all over the world. And then we have the huge presence in the Americas. So I'm at the top on the right there in Detroit, Michigan, but it's really a one-team America's effort. If you work left and right, we have research centers in California, in Silicon Valley, that are kind of in the beating heart of the innovation labs there. And that's connected to our teams as well as all the dots that you see. So between testing and hot areas like Arizona in the US, and then we have teams in the manufacturing plants, as well as in Mexico, in Toluca. And then, of course, in Curitiba, we have an R&D team here. And then, of course, we have Argentina as well. So it's really a total team effort to design and build the cars that you see here today. So the Americas, there's a lot of people. And you can imagine with a lot of plants, we build the cars that we design and engineer in the region. And with that, we have a lot of people. You can see, so 40,000 people. We got offices all over the place. We have 1.4 million sales volume. So it's a big operation here globally for Nissan. Now, this picture shows kind of past, present, and future. But first of all, there's the past. So you think about what did cars used to be. I actually owned that car. It's a Sentra. Back in the day when they were a bit square and boxy, it was a 5-speed transmission, did not have power or anything. It was an old school car. And when my kids get in those cars now, they're like, how do you put the windows up and down? How do you set the cruise? The steering's so difficult. So that was back in the day. It was a lot different back then, back in the good old days. When you made a new car, the next model, you made it a little bit bigger, a little bit taller, a little bit faster, 10 more horsepower. You did those kinds of things. That's what car design was. That's what mobility was. It was just a cool thing that you got in to get around. And then, of course, we made sports cars and lots of great things. But it was a different feeling. There was no connectivity, right? The connection was just maybe the passion of the car and the shape. The technology was different. Of course, we had, ICE engines. We say ICE. ICE means internal combustion engine. That's all we knew. Then you move to present. Now, when I look at this, I don't think about the present. I actually think about the future, because the future's right there. And that's so different than the cars we have on the road today. I mean, even this car, this is kind of the present in a sense, the Leaf. It's an amazing vehicle. I have one at home. I drive it every day. I love it. And this is really the future, though. And the future has come today as the present. So I have fun looking at the Aria. I mean, the architecture, everything about the car is different than we used to have. So when you had an ICE engine, that combustion engine in the front of the older car, today's cars, it defines the whole front of the car. It defines the overhang, it defines the design of the car. But now, the flexibility of electric vehicles is so different. So you don't have to worry the same amount about what this big box, this big metal thing in the front of the car, the big engine. So you can push the wheels out, you can have a flat floor, you can kind of give more space to the vehicle. So this car that you see, this Aria, has a certain footprint. We call it a C-platform car. It's a very technical term. A platform is small, A, B, C, D, E, the size of the vehicle. But this is like the C platform with the size of a D car. So it means it's one size bigger than it looks because you can give so much creativity, so much space back to the customer, back to the enjoyment. Then you have the future. And so now that we're thinking about the future, we're thinking about utilizing, zero emissions, EV, battery electric cars. We have so much design flexibility in the cars. So our design teams can really make an amazing package to deliver the excitement to the customer. So, we have a little video here, and I'll just play it in the background. You can see that the first step is the Aria, and then we have the Leaf, Aria, and this Sakura. So Sakura means cherry blossom in Japanese, and these are some new EVs coming right now. When we say EV, battery electric cars, those are driving around the streets of Yokohama in Japan. So it's really exciting to see. As we talk about the future, really we're having all these new cars coming our way. So. Actually, I want to back this up a little bit. There we go. So now, once we have the design flexibility, the freedom to work with this new future electric vehicles architecture, you can do so many different things, right? So this is a time when you can really express, the design teams can express themselves in the creation of the future. I mean, these are not cars that you see on today's roads, but they're definitely what we can do. I just want to explain a little bit about the cycle of the engineering world and what it means: research and development, execution, engineering. It's actually a pretty long process. So when we say research, we're studying the trends, the things that the customers don't even know they want or need right now. And it could be technology, it could be the way you interact with the car, it could be the ecosystem, it could be anything. That's like 10 to 20 years out. It's hard to believe that you're deciding today what someone's going to like in 20 years. If we thought about smartphones 20 years ago, you had no idea they were coming, right? So that's the same sort of thing we do when we engineer a vehicle. And then you work into the advanced engineering phase. So you kind of go, you hand off to where we have a concept, but how do we get it closer to the customer? So we go into this advanced engineering phase, which is about 5-7 years out. Then we go into kind of the development phase, which is like 3 to 5 years out. Then we kind of go into execution phase when the car comes to the plant, the manufacturing plants, and then we see the cars on the road. So that's the cycle we're talking about here. So in doing that, as a company, though, we need a direction. We need to know where we're heading. So we created this thing we call Ambition 2030. And so 2030 sounds like a long ways away, but as I said, when you're talking about trends that are 20 years away, that's very close. So the things that are happening in 2030 are already kind of coming together, right? As far as customer needs, as far as the solutions that we're going to be executing with, the engineering, the technology, the kind of customer experience is starting to come together. So, but anyways, still, as a company, you need to have a vision, right? A vision of where you're going. So we created this Ambition 2030 to do that. So where the company says, this is where we're heading. What are we doing with that? We want to head towards our goal of like zero emission, our goal of zero fatality, our goal of like an ecosystem of connection to the vehicle as a customer, but also as a relationship with the vehicle. And as far as that it's not just a vehicle anymore, it's part of an ecosystem. It's part of society. It's part of the climate. It's part of everything. So this is how we think about things now. And this is why we set up this Ambition 2030 as a vision for the company. Then, in order to have a vision, I think in the old days, the vision wasn't as connected to society. The vision was like the company's vision, right? So if I look back, even in our past, when we had a vision of a corporate plan, it didn't sound like this. It wasn't talking about the problems that we have in society. It was talking about what we wanted to do as a company. Like, we're going to have this amazing sales volume. We're going to make lots of money, right? I mean, that was kind of the spirit of it. I mean, it was very particular. It was like, we're going to have this sales volume. We're going to have this penetration. We're going to have, and we're going to have this amount of profit. So like, that makes some sense, right? When in a company, like, you have to have a goal. And when you have a goal at the big level of the company, you break that down into like all your little teams I have to do this to beat this. Everybody has an idea of how what they do connects to the top. And the top was sales volume and profit. Well, you can't, they gotta all come together, right? You can't fix the problems of the earth without money. So that your company's not making money, then you can't do these things. So that makes some sense. And if you don't have sales volume, you don't have enough magnitude, you have all these people, and you can't pay the salaries without volume that makes the money. So there is logic to why we used to do it the way we did. But there's also a disconnection. Because as an employee, and you work to solve problems as an engineer, as a designer, as a manufacturer, as a planner, as everybody in the company, it's like, am I working to make money? No, I'm working because I have passion. I want to design cars. I want to solve problems. So that's why we kind of changed the mindset of the company. And so that Ambition 2030 is out there, and then what are we doing? What are we addressing with that? And it's very different, right? Because we're kind of connecting ourselves to society. So obviously we know the problems in society, and now the company is recognizing those problems as we look to the future. So I think this is a bit of a breakthrough from what we've done in Nissan. So you can see the problems on the screen. But the center one is interesting, you know, social issues, crowding. I was looking at the internet. I want to double check how many people are on the earth. I think it's like 7.8 billion people, and there's going to be 8 billion in 2 years, and by 2030 it's 9 billion, and it's 11 billion by 2050. If you think about that, can we keep doing the same things we're doing now? And I think we all think the answer is no, right? Can we keep making so many cars, I guess? Can we keep producing the cars that act the same way that they do today? No. So this is why we connect the future to what we're doing for sustainability. So for the vehicle, for the manufacturing process, for the entire ecosystem of the car, that's what sustainability means. Not just the car itself, but the car, the way we build the car, the way we design the car, everything about it. So it's a different way of thinking. As far as, I said we weren't going to talk a lot about money and sales volume, but the reality is we got to use that to fuel and kind of set the stage and give us the magnitude to be able to do what we need to do. So that means we take the money, we got to put it towards the future, right? We put these huge amounts of money towards the electrified future. That means we also have product plans in place. So we said 23 vehicles. We say electrified. Electrified means, I'm electrified right now. I'm always electrified. But electrified in this case means like moving towards battery electric vehicles. And that's what you have 15 that are actually pure battery electric, and the others are going to be like bridge technology. We have something I'll talk about called e-power and other things. And the purpose of that is getting the customers towards electrification, towards battery electric vehicles. And then we have a goal of 50% of our products will be battery electric vehicles, or electrified, I guess, electrified by this 2030. Now, that could be a goal. Actually, it's a goal, but you have to set the stage to meet a goal. Which means if you don't make the cars, you can't get to 50% electrified. But the problem is the customer really is the customer will decide that 50%. Because, to be honest, when we made the Leaf, we were groundbreaking, right? In 2010, we created the Nissan Leaf. There's no infrastructure, there's no anything. There's no customers, nobody knows anything about it. So there's a lot of skepticism, but you have the early innovators who are willing to try it. But the mass market is nervous, right? Mass market likes to buy what they know. And so the point is, when we get to 50%, we need to make amazing vehicles that interact with the customer, that drive people's behavior and passion and emotion, so that you want to buy the car because it's a great car, and that leads to that volume. So the customer will tell us if we're successful. We'll put the money in, we'll make the cars, the customer will judge, and if they judge us correctly, that 50% will be achieved. But you can see it's kind of it's a gamble to a sense, because it's a lot easier just building things the customer already wants. Building things the customer isn't sure they want is a bit of a risk, and this is what we have to do. So I mentioned infrastructure. This is one of those things. When I got the previous Leaf, it had, and I got to use miles, sorry, it was like about 100 miles of range, so 160 kilometers. And you know, the research said, oh, the customer, we drive, you know, under 50 miles per day on average, so it's going to be great. 100 miles of range is all you need. You plug it in and you start every day with a fresh charge. You go to work, you come back, you go to the store, it's going to be great. The fact is, the early innovators, early adopters, they were like, this is great, I love it. I'm sustainable and all this. But the rest of the regular people were like, yeah, that's not enough range for me. And then why is that? Well, part of it is the infrastructure, right? Because on every corner we have a gas station, but on every corner there's a charger. And so even if you start with a full charge, there's a lot of what ifs. I talked to my wife and she'd be like, what if I have to go see our daughter in college? I'm like, well, that hasn't happened in the last year, but if it did need to happen, we'd have a plan and we'd do it. Yeah, but what if I had to go today? So the point is, customer behavior is super important. And creating infrastructure is one of those things that's going to take time to get this 50% adoption level. And it's a global issue, right? Now the fact is Nissan is investing a lot of money on infrastructure. I mean, it's hundreds of billions, millions of dollars, a couple $100 million already, a couple $100 million coming soon. That's not going to be enough probably as a global situation, but it is definitely we're heading in the right direction of our kind of intention for the future to give customers the feeling of kind of confidence when they drive the car. Now this one has now it's double that range, more than double that range, and that's becoming normal. So even my wife is very skeptical of now driving it every day, doesn't even think about it, because every day you start with a full charge. I think she has never once used the infrastructure. She only uses the house charger, because 225 miles of range, 400 kilometers, whatever, that means that she can actually drive up to an hour drive, a last minute trip can happen. So I've seen the behavioral change now of my most skeptical customer, my wife, and I'm getting confident now that everyone can kind of embrace that. And as we move now here, we're talking about not quite double again, but 300-mile range, 400 to 500 kilometers. That's a game changer, I think. And then, of course, we're going to go on from there, and on from there. So that means that the performance, the range will be met for the customer's needs in all environments, super cold, super hot. I know we're going to hear a little bit about that later. But this is about what engineering has to do to solve these problems so the customer has a kind of a seamless experience. Because the customers on that previous page, they're very demanding, right? There's no compromise. Customers don't want compromise. You can tell them, this is the way this thing works, and they just say, look, I want to get in the car, I want to go to where I have to go, I'll go to the gas station, I want to fill it up like I do today, it takes me 5 to 10 minutes, I want to be done. That's what the customer needs. That's what we're working on. So to do that, we have to innovate. That's what we do. We solve the problem. So as I said, that 20-year horizon is some of these items, right? Some of these things like the next battery technology that we need, that's coming, right? But that's in the research phase. That's in that 10 to 20 year out there range. Then we have the other technologies we need to do. So the autonomous, all the things that we do, we have to plan ahead of what the customer doesn't even know they want yet today. So I'm going to talk about a few of those technologies. The first one is about confidence. On that research phase, we know where we want to go. So I talked about that 2030 ambition. And the 2030 ambition was about things like zero EV. Okay, we talked about, or zero emissions EV. And talk about zero fatalities, right? This is something that I say like 10 years ago, I saw it as a dream, I saw it as an ambition, but it wasn't like, it felt just more like a pretty thing to write on the wall. It was a nice idea. Today it's becoming reality because the research phase is saying that we can do this. We can solve the problems of accidents. And so what do we do to get there? We say today driver-assisted technology because the customer needs to come along. You can't take a customer today and put them in a car that has no steering wheel or that's driving by itself. The customer's like, whoa, I don't feel comfortable. I don't like this. I can't, I'm not in control. So we're purposely starting with kind of a step-by-step approach to get the customer engaged and connected to the vehicle, to trust it. So we assist right now, which means that we are slowly taking the customer down the path to take control or to assist the customer and give them confidence when we do that. So, we know what cruise control is, right? You set the speed. That's old school. Now we have the intelligent cruise control, which follows the distance, right? Keeps the car. Then we have the first step of this, which is we call ProPilot Assist, where there's lane centering as well as distance control. So now, but hands-on. And we do that on purpose so that the car is actually steering and making adjustments, but you feel that confidence because now it's like on a long trip, I don't have a tension in my shoulder because it's just kind of there, but the car's doing it. Then the next step is hands off, eyes on. That's what this car has, the Aria. It has kind of we call it ProPilot 2.0, which means now you're taking a trip, you're watching the road, you're kind of ready, but your hands are off the steering wheel. It's a breakthrough. Now it's not a breakthrough because you're not on your phone sending text. That's a real breakthrough. That's coming next. So next is we call eyes off, hands off. Then that's what we're kind of still researching, where we're looking ahead to say, what do we need to do? How do we communicate with the customer? How do we navigate? How do we look ahead? How do we understand the map? How do we understand what the problems are? How do we understand where there's construction or other problems that are coming with the car? So this is a step-by-step approach. So as I said, where we are today is eyes on, hands off. And that's where we're moving right now. And that's like, today it's like one lane. Now, but we're having the navigation of the car, the connected part of the car is there, so you set your destination. The car knows where you want to go, it knows how much range you have, it's going to figure out where you need to stop to get your charge is on the way. And then it's going to know that you're going to take this next exit, you're going to want to go to the left. And so it wants to get you to the left-hand lane. It suggests that, you're going to help the car move along, so it's kind of moving step by step to give the customer confidence in what we're doing with our technology, that you feel that you trust it. So that's what we're doing. What's after that? Well, we have a video here, and I'll kind of speak a little bit while it's driving, which is now we're talking about much more complex situations, kind of a little scary there. So this is a simulation. But yeah, we're talking about now, this is in the research advanced engineering phase, where we're actually managing these kind of crazy situations. That I'm sure this is about that confidence once again. So that, how do you assess, how do you understand that that's a barrel coming and not a bird flying, right? So kind of, we're working on this now. It's very high technology. You can see a little image here. This is called LiDAR, which is basically it's a real-time laser that's calculating the position of everything around us, and then we're using algorithms in the vehicle in order to decide what to do with that data. It's kind of like merging so much information. Merging, we have all these control models in the car, so we're going to be merging this LiDAR information, we're merging this camera information, merging all of the sensors of the car are kind of merging together. And now this is like advanced engineering. So you start with the research where you predict it. Now you take it out to the car. Well, this is still, obviously testing. So we have a lot of fun creating little mock-ups of tires and what have you. But you can imagine it's a very big difference in this real time. You're driving, 100, 130 kilometers per hour to try to figure out how to assess what is what. So that's a pallet. To us, our eyes say it's a pallet in the road. The vehicle has to decide that that's not an irregular thing in the road. It has to find potholes, to find speed bumps, and all this has to work together. So it's really, like this case here, merging sensors of the maps. So the current technology, we're almost done here, but the current technology is using HD, high definition mapping to basically understand where the car is. That's what the Aria does today. So I'm going to finish a little bit before I get to the safety test lab. But so the current Aria requires the road to be basically scanned and mapped. So you can imagine that's a pretty intense operation. You have to manage all the data, basically down to it's like 3 centimeters margin We have to understand where every feature of the road is, where the curves are, where the curbs are, where the lines are, where everything is. And that data needs to be managed by the car in real time to know where it is. That's today's technology. That's not realistic to go to more and more autonomous drive, right? Because you have to scan every road in the world, first of all. Second of all, you have to manage all that data. Third, you have to manage the change, right? Because you can imagine every time you make a scan, next week they put something new and it's changing all the time. So this is, we've accomplished it great now, but in the future we need to be able to process how the car can analyze where it is off map. And that's what we're doing with research. So that's where we're kind of studying the off map situation. Where that LiDAR that you saw is a part of that solution, and then even the readiness of that kind of technology is still under development now. So it's a future thing, but this is what we do. We're always working towards the future. So, in addition, of course, our vision of 2030 is that we're not going to have, we're having zero fatalities, zero accidents. We're using that technology I just showed you to give confidence that when you're driving, the car knows where you are, you know what the car sees, the car is ready to handle those situations. Of course, that's the future, and that we're going to keep pushing for that. But in the meantime, there's a lot of drivers out on the road that don't have that technology, so you're going to have this overlap for 20s of years where you have regular cars and cars that are smarter, that have all this technology. So in the meantime, we have to actually plan for crashes in the end of the day. So this is a big, they call it active safety, passive safety. Active safety is what we were looking at for that technology, where the car is assessing the situation and making decisions to basically avoid an accident or finally to zero fatality is the goal. But reality is, there's a point when you can't stop a collision because there's too much going on, and you're trying to minimize it and avoid it, and eventually you have to plan for the crash, basically. So a big part of our job, which used to be a conventional part of our job, is planning for crash safety. We call it passive safety. So we, in the region, this is in North America, up at my office, but we build the kind of world-leading safety crash test center. And this is where we come in and we test so many different things. So I showed you that old Sentra. I mean, that was the good old days, but there was no airbags. There's no anti-lock braking. There's no dynamic control. The safety was pretty fundamental. You had seat belts. You have, but you don't have a lot of crash modes because the regulations throughout the world were pretty basic. But today, the regulations have really, between Latin NCAP and everything, there's so many requirements. So there's probably there's maybe 50 or 60 crash tests that have to occur on every new vehicle. And this is independent of how many great advanced technologies you have. So even though we have a lot of systems on all our new cars that have automatic emergency braking because we have cameras and radar in the cars already, and we're avoiding those collisions. When you put it in reverse and you drive, it has an automatic emergency braking, or it has rear sonar and sensor to watch out for that car that's coming up. All those things are there, but we still plan for the crash. So anyways, we've got an advanced crash development center called Safety Advancement Lab. This is in Michigan, but it's a total regional operation. So we can basically crash test any vehicle that's going to be built anywhere in the Americas, and we're working on that. So I'll kind of talk over the video a little bit, but it's very interesting because we have, obviously you've got crash tests, and then you have the crash test dummies. They're very expensive. They're practically, some of them are up to $1 million each. And you can see inside of them there's a lot of connections, and there's all kinds of sensors throughout. There's kid dummies and adult dummies, and they're all over the place. And so we have to calibrate them. This looks painful, but we have to, basically you're testing the sensors to say, if you bend the neck like this, what do you get in the sensors? So basically that's what this is showing, some of this calibration of the dummies and preparation for the crash test. So you prepare all the dummies, you get them calibrated, you sit them in the cars according to all the rules, and we have all these areas where we crash test the vehicles. And you can imagine there's lights and cameras, there's a lot of preparation that goes, and then we're actually running a car 50, 60 kilometers an hour right into a barrier. And we have all kinds of high-speed cameras that look from underneath. You can see, we paint all the cars so you can see them crash and crush. And we're going to show you a crash test here in a second, but it's very kind of good engineering activity to kind of design for the failures and make, kind of make the best possible protection for the customer. So you can see this happens to be a Titan pickup truck. Now this barrier here, this is like an engineered barrier. This simulates another car. So it's got a bumper and it crushes just like a car would crush, so it matches that. You can see the airbags going off, and the dummies are behind the airbag because there's a curtain airbag in there. But anyways, we do I think about 3 tests per day. So you can imagine 1,000 crash tests a year we do for all the different markets, because every market has a slightly different requirement, and we have to kind of work towards that. So this is one of the exciting things we do up in Michigan, Nissan. All right, now a little bit about other technologies. So we really was focused a lot on our kind of zero fatality mission of 2030. And now it's about this human-centric side of the business. So you're going to hear some more later today about other technologies where we're connecting the vehicle to the grid, connecting the vehicle outside. But in the research area right now, we're working on connecting the vehicle to everything, including the infrastructure, including people's cell phones, so that when there's a building and someone's walking quickly and you can't see them, the car is going to tell you that there's someone coming. Those kinds of things we're doing. So it's really a kind of safety, it's also interaction, it's also human related, human connection. Then there's about using your phone as a guide into the car and planning your routes and planning your activities and deciding what you're going to do. It's like your car is becoming like your cell phone. So it's very exciting. Now a little bit about the battery technology. So first, as I mentioned before, I talked about our 2030 plan where we have the 23 vehicles that are electrified and 15 were battery electric. As I said, there's some bridge technologies. And the bridge, this particular one is called e-power. It's kind of a breakthrough. It's basically a combination of a battery electric and an engine. So it's put together. So where you actually you drive it like an EV, but you have an engine that powers a generator that runs the battery, that powers the battery. So this is a way to kind of get in an area where there's no infrastructure or other areas where you can get the feeling of an EV with great fuel economy, but you also still have gasoline or other products that can go into it. So the point of that is to bridge the technology and get closer to a fully electrified future, and we have lots of technologies coming. On the EV side of the world, so first you can see the 2 cars in the room, so the Leaf and the Aria. The current battery technology that's used today is called lithium-ion technology. This is really starting. I mean, it's the same technology in cell phones and in laptops, and it's been expanded and grown to the best it can to kind of power the vehicles that you see today. But there's some limitation, and it has to do with if you want to make a car that has 500 miles of range.